Hello, this is Chef John from foodwishes.com with Boudin balls. That's right, we may have been pronouncing it wrong, but it's not Boudin, it's not Boudin, it's Boudin. Although after you taste one of these, I'm sure you'll agree with me, it should be called Boudin. But no matter how you pronounce it, there's no debating. This is one of the most delicious foods ever invented. And by the way, this will crush the competition at any Super Bowl buffet. So if you are into that kind of thing, pay attention. And like so many of the great recipes that hail from Louisiana, we're going to start with the Holy Trinity, which of course is celery, onions, and peppers. So into a nice big pot, I'm going to dump some diced onion, some diced celery, and then 2 kinds of peppers. I'm going to use some jalapeno and some poblano chili. And of course, if you want, you can just use regular green bell pepper. We're also going to toss in some minced garlic, and then it's time for the meat. And there's going to be 2 kinds. Some pork shoulder, also known as pork butt, and that's been cut into like 1.5 inch cubes. And then we're also going to add some chicken liver. Now, traditionally, pork liver's used, but I actually prefer chicken livers. And I know a lot of you are squeamish about cooking with liver, but don't be. It's one of the keys to this recipe, so put it in. Besides, the only thing that makes those livers look so red is the blood. So we're going to toss in some liver, and then we're going to season this very, very generously, starting with a ton of kosher salt. I know it looks like too much, but it's not, trust me. We're also going to add a whole bunch of freshly ground black pepper. We're also going to put in some chili powder. I'm going to use ancho and some cayenne. And usually we just put a little pinch of cayenne so I can make a joke. But this time we're putting in a nice big spoon. And once all that's in our pot, we're going to take a spoon and mix this very thoroughly. Very thoroughly. Because what we're going to do here after this is very well mixed. We're going to put on the cover and we're going to let this sit in the fridge, absorbing flavor for a minimum of 2 hours or overnight. Okay, so like most of our favorite recipes from New Orleans, this is very simple, but does take some time. So for me, this was about 4 hours later. We're going to pull it out, uncover it, and we'll give it a quick stir with a spoon to loosen things up, at which point we're going to cover it with cold, fresh water until it kind of looks like this. The water should come up above the meat about 2 inches or so. And at this point, we're going to put our heat on high and bring this up to a boil. And I really should warn you, there are few things less attractive than a batch of Boudin coming up to a boil. Check it out. That is not attractive. But don't worry, give it a stir. The ugliness will dissipate. And then what we're going to do is we're going to lower our heat down to low and simmer this gently for about 1.5 hours, or until your meat is completely tender. And how you'll know is we'll give it the old fork test, because basically this is done when that fork goes into the meat with no effort. Completely fork tender, and that's what I have right here. And at that point we can remove it from the heat and separate the meat from the cooking liquid. And we're going to do that in a strainer. So carefully transfer that in, let that liquid drain off, and do not discard those accumulated juices. Very, very important to the recipe, okay? So let that drain, reserve that liquid, and then we're going to transfer the meat onto a cutting board and chop it nice and fine. Now, a lot of recipes say to use a sausage grinder. Why in the world do you dirty that to do this? I don't know. Because all you need to do is take a big knife or a cleaver and give it the old choppa for a minute until you have something that looks like this. And then once our meat has been chopped, we will transfer that into a mixing bowl and add the final few ingredients. First up, we have some freshly chopped green onions, also commonly referred to as scallions. We're also going to do some freshly chopped Italian parsley, and last but not least, cooked rice, and a lot of it. This stuff, at least my version, is about half rice to half meat. And then what we're going to do here is we're going to take a spoon and mix that rice into that meat mixture while adding in as much of that reserved liquid as we can. So I'm going to toss in a ladle of that. We'll mix that for a little while. We'll toss in some more. We'll mix it some more. We'll toss in some more. We'll mix it some more. And we'll continue doing that until we have something that's very, very pasty. And I don't know if yours is going to absorb all your cooking liquid. I used about 3/4 of what I had reserved. And even though it may seem a little wet, a little loose, don't worry, this is really going to firm up as it chills. But anyway, to summarize, you're going to stir that mixture for about 5 minutes, incorporating enough of that cooking liquid to get a nice wet pasty mixture. And that is pretty much it, except we do have to chill this thoroughly before we start rolling our balls. So I'm going to take a spatula and clean that up a little bit, press it all down together, and then we'll just toss on some plastic wrap and put that in the fridge until it's firm enough to shape. And yes, definitely feel free to do this overnight. That will actually help the flavors develop even more. And you'll see, once it's chilled and you pull it out, it will be nice and firm and very, very shapeable. And you can do any shape you want, but since I'm calling these Boudin balls, I'm going to make balls. But anyway, after the ballin' and possibly shock callin', it's time to bread. And we're going to use the classic 3-station breading system. which means we're going to roll our balls in some seasoned flour. That's just salt, pepper, cayenne, and some flour. And then once those are coated, we'll drop our balls into some beaten eggs, roll those around a little bit, and then finally, we'll coat those in some breadcrumbs. I'm going to use panko, but really any kind of dry breadcrumb will work. And at that point, your Boudin balls are ready to fry. Although, like most breaded things, I do like to let these sit for about 10 minutes to kind of tighten up. But really, that depends on how hungry you and your guests are. And yes, you can definitely bread these ahead of time and fry them when you're ready. And speaking of frying, that is the last step. We are going to fry these in 350-degree oil for about 3 to 4 minutes. And about halfway through that time, I like to give them a little jiggle, a little wiggle, just in case. And once those are fried for 3 or 4 minutes, your Boudin balls should be perfectly done. Which means they should be golden brown and crispy on the outside, and hot, moist, and delicious on the inside. And when I say crispy on the outside, oh, I mean it. Check it out. And above and beyond the staggering amounts of flavor this has, that textural play between that crunchy outside and that soft, tender, moist inside is almost beyond description. And I guess you should let them cool a minute, but I didn't. I served mine immediately with some spicy Cajun mustard remoulade. If I showed you how to make that, I can't remember. But anyway, you're going to dip, you're going to bite, and I'm pretty sure have your mind blown. We've already covered the texture, but the taste is like savory, spicy goodness times 1,000. That succulent pork and tender rice and aromatic vegetables. And what really brings it all together is that gaminess from that liver. So key. Do not skip the liver. Even if you hate liver, you will love it in this. In fact, you remember that expression, amazeballs? That was originally coined to describe this. I know, hard to believe. But more importantly, impossible to disprove. But anyway, I really do hope you give these a try. Head over to foodwishes.com for all the ingredient amounts and more info, as usual. And as always, enjoy.